Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. And Stefan, thanks for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here today and open the second day of the Scaling Agile Summit. As mentioned, my name is Stefano Sostak, and I work as an Agile coach for Solarisbank. Today, I want to talk about my understanding of how we scaled Agile with people and not with frameworks. For that, I'm going to take you on a journey, our Agile growth journey, and maybe inspire you with one or two things that you will take home after this session. So, when I was thinking about what I want to achieve with my talk, I struggled a bit with putting it into words. But actually, I was pretty clear. I wanted to share a story about scaling Agile where the main character, the hero of the narrative, isn't another scaling framework. I wanted to share a story about people. And this is why I'm going to take you with me on my journey with Solarisbank, a company that started with a handful of pioneers aiming to reshape finance, growing to almost 400 people today. And this journey will be very personal. I'm going to share my learnings and the experiences I gathered, including my 5 success factors for scaling Agile with people. So on this journey, I learned that getting the right people and empower them, provide team autonomy, and practice experimenting, and last but not least, foster self-organization were key to our success. So in the following, I will take you with me to share my belief and why I believe that it's not about frameworks when it comes to scaling Agile across an organization. I believe the people are the real heroes. But before I start, I have to admit something. I actually never thought I would be working for a bank. For me, this just didn't feel appealing. You know, with everything you hear about banks, like the mindset, the structures, the business models, thinking of the predominant attitude, what you hear and read from traditional banks, I think this picture somehow makes a point. It was taken from the men's toilet on the 49th floor of Commerzbank in Frankfurt. And yeah, you have a wonderful view on the surrounding banks while you do what you need to do, right? But I was asked from my former team lead, someone I highly trust and highly respect, if I would like to join the Agile coach team at Solarisbank. And I quickly figured out that this company is not a bank. It is a tech company with a banking license, aiming for shaking up the financial industry. And saying that, let me share a few words about Solarisbank. Solarisbank is one of the fastest growing fintechs in Europe. And as mentioned, we don't see ourselves as a bank. We are a tech company with a banking license. More than 45% of our staff do have a tech background, and currently 50 plus different nationalities collaborate here. I guess you all know the concept of software as a service. Solarisbank came up with the business model of banking as a service, meaning you can easily connect your business to our APIs and directly offer a variety of financial services, such as loans, trading cryptocurrencies, or offer a classical banking account. And our business model works B2B2X. So there is no end customer business in place, what also somehow makes us not really competing with traditional banks. Currently, we have more than 60 partners live. Some of them you may know, like Tomorrow Bank or Penta, Contest. And looking at our growth journey, it is also well represented in the growing number of employees. Stefan, you mentioned growth by 300%, but actually in the past 3.5 years, the number of colleagues grew by 400%. and not counting in the 49 freelancers currently working for Solarisbank. To be part of this growth story was and still is an amazing experience for me. But of course, growing that fast also brings a lot of challenges. So with this in mind, how does Agile at Solarisbank look like? First of all, we are committed to working Agile not only in the product teams, but throughout the entire company. And secondly, we do not blindly follow any framework. For us, the main question is, which requirements and needs does the respective team have? And which Agile methods and tools are best suited for this? That means we don't seek for a standard solution that suits everyone equally. We decide to rather find out what suits best by experimenting, trying out, and readjusting. So to demonstrate how I experienced scaling the company to almost 400 people, I'm gonna share with you what we did on our Agile growth journey. And to do so, let me illustrate the different focus areas or flight levels we're gonna look at today. I will start the journey on the level of individuals. Then we're gonna talk about teams, followed by business units, and at the end, we come to company-wide projects. By the way, these 4 levels also reflect how we Agile coaches differentiate our engagements in the company. Okay, let's start with the Agile growth journey then. I invite you to lean back, make yourself comfortable, and just enjoy the ride. So we're gonna start with the journey in 2016 with less than 10 people working for the company. And a nice way to describe the early days of Solarisbank is using the PST concept by Simon Wardley, who is also the inventor of the Wardley map. In his concept, he differentiates between 3 stages of how innovation happens in a company: the pioneers, the settlers, and the town planners. Taking the image of pioneers is a great way to visualize the state of Solarisbank's early days. So Wardley describes the pioneers as those venturing into uncharted territories and come up with exciting ideas that haven't yet been done. They are bold, brave starters who have no fear of failing. In 2016, to be precise, on March 10th, Solarisbank was more or less born. On this day, the company received its full banking license from the BaFin and the European Central Bank, just 9 months after handing in the application. We directly started operating by connecting partners to the platform's API and built the first income already in May 2016, which was just 3 months later. So the company was set up by strong individual talents, people taking ownership, supporting each other. This group of people was discovering the uncharted land together. No one built an API-based banking platform before. So everyone was excited to be part of this adventure, make an impact, learn and grow every day. And at the early days, there were very flat hierarchies. Everyone was doing everything. And of course, with almost no formal structures in place, people needed to be highly self-reliant. There were no defined responsibilities or org charts. Something needed to be done? Okay, I'll do it. It was a hands-on mentality all around the place. And I would say it was like a textbook example of a thriving startup. Being part of this group of pioneers, the spirit was all over the place. And this made me think. I was wondering, how did this spirit evolve in the organization? And furthermore, how was it possible that this spirit later became the identity of Solarisbank? So Dr. Benjamin Schneider came up with a conclusion that I can highly relate to. He says that organizations are the people in them. People make the place. Talking about Dr. Benjamin Schneider, he's a professor emeritus of psychology at the University of Maryland, who had an interdisciplinary approach for his work, looking at theories and findings from different areas of psychology, and he was then connecting them. And this is how he concludes his findings with only one sentence. On my journey, I understood that the number one reason why this spirit of a self-reliant, get things done mentality evolved at Solarisbank and became its identity was the people. People shaping their environment to then thrive in it was my takeaway. For me, this set the tone of our agile growth journey. And now understanding people make the place, I was eager to find out if these people have something in common. Was there something characteristic that made us thrive in these challenging times? And yes, one thing stood out, and that was the mindset. You've maybe heard about the terms fixed mindset and growth mindset. And this concept was developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, who is professor of psychology at Stanford University. And she's describing the two mindsets, concluding that in a fixed mindset, people believe their basic qualities, like their intelligence or their talent. And people with fixed mindset also spend their time documenting their intelligence, instead of then maybe developing it, right? So they also believe that talent alone creates success without any effort. Alternatively, she describes that in a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point, and this view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Now, applying this on a challenging environment, Carol Dweck concludes that people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges because it makes them feel that they are not talented or smart. And they quickly lose interest when the work gets hard, maybe give up more easily. And those with a growth mindset actually seek and thrive on challenge. They want to stretch themselves because they know that they will grow and learn. So I have to add here that most people tend to not universally have a fixed or a growth mindset, right? You may find yourself behaving with a fixed mindset or a growth mindset in different situations at various points of your life. But coming back to the early days of Solarisbank, people who seek and thrive on challenge were essential to master the exploration of the uncharted land. The high uncertainty, the unknown territory, that was what attracted a certain kind of people to join. And these people brought their growth mindset to the organization, where it became the baseline of our working environment. Talking about work environment, let's get back to Dr. Benjamin Schneider. And he describes in his studies that it is the people behaving in them that make organizations what they are. He even created a formula for environments, saying, environments are the function of persons behaving in them. And personally, I strongly resonate with his message and also connected to our Agile Coach vision, which we have at the moment at Solarisbank, which is saying, we grow a working environment where teams and individuals use their full potential to deliver highest value. For me, our Agile Coach vision at Solarisbank is perfectly suited to give us guidance for the long-term development of the whole Agile growth journey. So we started to look at the Agile growth journey, focusing on how people make the place. Personally, I learned how genius individuals are when it comes to shaping their own working environment. The impressions I gathered from collaborating with more and more people across the company, I saw how powerful it is to give people the authority to create. And working with strong, empowered talents, led by their growth mindset, continuously inspired me to surpass myself. Feeling empowered myself, I would say this is my personal formula for intrinsic motivation. And yeah, this is why I perceive the first two success factors for scaling agile with people as get the right people and empower them. So the people perspective doesn't end at the level of individuals, which is why I'll move on with the growth journey and take you to the next flight level, which is the teams. You remember this growth curve, right? So the number of colleagues kept on continuously growing. And when this picture was taken end of 2017, we've been around 130 people. Speaking in Wardley's terms, at this time, we developed from the pioneer stage into the settler stage. So you can say the pioneers settled. And Wardley describes the stage of settlers as settlers take the inspired ideas that pioneers came up with, flesh them out, and make them a reality. They study current trends and improve on the product or service so that there is momentum, growth, meeting the user's needs, and earning profits. For me, I imagine this transition from pioneers to settlers as the following. So the pioneers used to be all-rounders, right? They've been able to do everything, but maybe not in the best quality. In a pioneer stage, when a chariot broke, everyone in the track helped to fix it. The group swarmed, fixed the issue, and moved on. Now, settling down, this changed. The settlers specialized, meaning now you would go and see the chariot mechanic to repair it after you finish your work as, for example, the blacksmith. But before everyone finds his or her place in this new created village, there is a transition period with a high amount of uncertainty. And speaking for Solarisbank, this transition period from pioneers to settlers felt like that we've been balancing on the thin line between chaos and agile. So, to better describe what that means, let me dive a little bit deeper into the circumstances to give you a better understanding of what was going on at that time. As seen in the chart before, we faced this long period of massive hiring, quickly exceeding Dunbar's number of 150 people, which was mentioned yesterday by Tim. And Dunbar has described in his findings that the limit of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships is indeed 150. And he also describes this number as the amount of relationships in which an individual knows who each person is and how each person relates to everyone else. From the business side, there was quite some pressure from our partners. Of course, they wanted specific features, and of course, they wanted them now. And yeah, we still needed to prove our business model. So we faced almost weekly changing requirements and also being quite sales-driven at that time. In this fast-paced, fast-changing setup, the need for structure and order grew more and more within the company. And I was extremely curious how we are going to deal with this situation, handling the balancing act of like being on this thin line between chaos and agile. And at that time, the agile growth team was consisting of the head of engineering, the COO, and the agile coach team. And we've been focusing on the tech department, which grew to over 50 people, plus external remote teams, and we're aiming for keeping up the pace to fulfill this increasing number of partner requests. And besides this tremendous speed of hiring, there was an additional speed of setting up new teams, which also was extremely challenging. I mean, new teams have been created like every 6 to 8 weeks, and some of them have been set up completely new, and some would be rearranged. So there was a lot of motion. While the tech department grew, the reporting line at the same time remained the same. And that meant there was one manager for all the engineers. And of course, that didn't scale. So we had to find a way to deal with all these circumstances, aiming for the most sustainable solution to meet the requests for more stability without breaking our spirit. So we sat down and iterated. And the good thing was that we had the right people in the company, high maturity of individuals to cope with the current situation. And as we learned before, people form their environment. So we've been pretty clear that we don't want to force people into something which does not fit them. And to address the needs for structure and clarity, we supported where the needs were most pressuring, and that was within the product teams. While working together with the teams, we recognized that they know best how to deal with their specific challenges and how to then face them. And this is why we decided against setting up strict rules and a one-size-fits-all approach. This could have been a strict framework, which all teams have to follow. But instead, we chose to cultivate the mantra of whatever fits the team. To make that work, we kept a high team autonomy, supporting the teams to figure out their own way of working. And yeah, that meant if a team wants to work Scrum, let's work Scrum. If the team wants to go Kanban, let's go Kanban. So far and so on. So supporting the teams to cope with their autonomy, become real teams, and shape their way of collaboration, these were typical examples of how we coaches spend our workdays. We supported with offering coachings, trainings, and also secondary consultancy according to the team's needs. And while doing that, one behavior pattern we kept continuously stimulating was continuous experimenting. For me, practicing continuous experimenting means inviting change as a trigger for innovation. And I remember in some product teams, we experienced the desire to pursue the right plan for the ideal outcome. And this desire mainly came from new joining product owners who were experts in banking-related topics but have not yet worked in a software company. They experienced a hard change of principle because what worked well for their former environment did not work out facing our complexity. And that led to a lot of frustration. So as an alternative, we offered continuous experimenting as a goal-oriented approach, supporting to navigate in our complex environment. But still, having a banking license as a tech company does not come without constraints. Our room for experimenting is maybe not as wide as in other fields. For example, we have to deal with banking regulations, and some of them led to special company policies like the 4I principles when it comes to reviewing code. But I want to put it that way. So the frame in which we are operating can also be seen as our guide rails. So next to the banking regulations, It also consists of our objectives and key results, which are defining our company goals. And to not become static, this frame or these guide rails are regularly negotiated within the company. And for me, this is necessary to stay agile and not put obstacles in the way of continuous improvement. As mentioned, for the Agile Growth team, the main support areas were the individual level and the team level. We focused our engagement in the tech department, iterating on suitable ways to support our colleagues shaping their work environment. And one outcome of the Agile Growth in tech was that it gained more and more visibility within the whole organization, which also led to the first non-tech requests for the Agile Coach team. So from this point, it didn't take long that the proof of concept in tech prompted the entire company to think the Agile Growth a bit larger, applying the learnings from our tech teams to our business units. And this was a huge milestone on the way to scale Agile across the company. But let's take one thing at a time. So Solarisbank was further growing, right? And we needed a change to again become more flexible, fast, and also impact-driven. For this reason, we took the traditional organizational chart, which is also required by the regulator, and flipped it sideways. So this is how the unit structure was introduced. So let's have a look at this concept of our business units. At Solarisbank, we currently have 4 customer-facing business units: Identity, Digital Banking, Lending Unit, and Digital Assets. And every business unit operates in a cross-functional, end-to-end setup and independently makes decisions for their products and customers. You can imagine the units as little companies within Solarisbank, each with their own business unit head, just like their own CEO. And the business unit heads, they are enabled to take decisions for their unit, which massively reduces the coordination effort. Coming to the picture of Wardley's PST concept, being settlers at that time, you can imagine the units as districts that formed and emerged during the growth of our village, right? And each district has then his own characteristics. So besides getting faster in decision making, the business unit concept enabled us to take the market demand stronger into account, and actually also to change our working mode from reactively responding to demand to proactively creating demand. And looking at the Agile Growth journey, the claim for the units was, let's learn from tech and their Agile practices. So this is actually when we as the coaches started to support on the unit level and put our learnings and best practices to the test. The unit concept with its cross-functional end-to-end coverage meant self-organization on a bigger scale. You can say from team autonomy to unit autonomy. And for me, this was a huge challenge and very exciting to now scale Agile beyond tech. Let me share with you what I've experienced entering this new chapter of my engagement. So for me, it felt like taking all my learnings to test them on a bigger scale. We had continuous experimenting, providing team autonomy, whatever fits the team, empower people, and people make the place. And you know what? It played out, except for one thing. Looking at the overall growth curve of employees, and then compare it with the growth curve of the total number of Agile coaches, we as a team didn't really scale. Actually, the team size remained more or less the same. And this had several reasons, but either way, we needed to find a work mode to cope with the fact that we are not able to support every team, every unit with the same intensity. So here's what we did. Have you seen this picture before? For me, this is a lovely picture of a well-known situation you sometimes face when you are working as an agile coach. And referring to the situation described before, we asked ourselves, who actually is this person? Agile coaches are often seen as drivers for improvement. But scaling Agile across the whole organization, now being almost 250 people with the same amount of coaches, we asked ourselves, does this person has to be an Agile coach? Wouldn't it be way more efficient if we enable team members to drive the concept of continuous improvement directly in their teams? And wouldn't that be way more sustainable while we as coaches invest in reducing the dependency on us? So what we did was we adapted our understanding of self-organization and changed our approach accordingly. We then strengthened the culture of continuous improvement and connecting it with self-organization and personal responsibility. In the long run, I do believe that effective help can only be support for self-help. And this is also why I believe in this concept, enabling our colleagues to be improvement drivers in their teams or in their units and also for themselves. So let me give you 2 examples for this. With the cross-functional business units, the demand to align within the units and across teams and functions dramatically increased. And at that time, we coaches were seen as experts for facilitation of all kinds. So looking back to this right now, sometimes I thought I should change my job title to facilitator. And in this regard, we started to think about how to make people less dependent on us when they would like to get a proper support on facilitation. So we experimented and it led us to create the facilitators pool. Colleagues from all across the company could sign up and attend a facilitation training. And after the training, these freshly trained facilitators gathered in a Slack channel and offering their support to the company. So this helped us to further enable colleagues and be free ourselves to support other requests. And to bring a second example, we have this Agile Masterclass. People across the company, they can join here to implement their own Agile projects. This group is led by an Agile coach, and together they work on realizing all these projects of the participants. So, to give an example for these projects, this can be self-organized introduction of Kanban in their new team, or maybe the creation of a workshop concept to promote cross-team collaboration. They choose it. They bring their topic, and then the Agile Masterclass works together to make that possible. So in a conclusion, this additional layer to self-organization, investing in people or investing in making people less dependent on us coaches, this was one very important success factor for me, enabling us to scale Agile across the entire company. So at this point, I would like to sum up what I've shared with you about our Agile growth journey at Solarisbank. Therefore, let's take a look at the different support levels again. We started with the foundation of every organization, its people. And I shared with you how the people make the place, how they shape the environment. So for me, investing in having the right people join the organization is one success factor I derive from our agile growth journey. Of course, every organization has to define what the right people means for them. So I would say the more precise you know that, the better. And secondly, I learned about the importance of empowering people. I experienced it myself, and I think it was Steve Jobs who said, it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We're gonna hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. Let's not silence people. Let's make them unfold their full potential. So empower individuals is the second success factor I strongly relate to. And usually when working with people, more sooner than later, they will team up. I personally experienced the power of giving teams time and space to grow together, to try out new things, to experiment, to also prioritize fun. And I learned how providing team autonomy is key for teams to excel. It lays the ground to make your teams storm-proof in the long run. Nowadays, it doesn't make sense to stick to a plan or framework that cannot handle change. So I experienced what it meant to let your people try out new things and be bold as a company. For me, continuous experimenting was key for our success. And last but not least, fostering self-organization. This is super helpful. It is super helpful to bring in experts to support entities with setting up their work mode. But for me, this is only sustainable as long as you foster self-organization. You're gonna gain nothing when you hire externals to make your teams kick ass, but as soon as they leave, the teams break apart. This is not sustainable. So foster self-organization on all levels to increase your resilience is a great takeaway for me. Looking back at the journey growing Solarisbank from under 10 to almost 400 people, I wanted to share these principles with you because I see them as important success factors for scaling agile with people. Still, we're facing new challenges at the moment and mainly connected to company-wide topics. Let me give you two examples, and I do that very quick. So, looking at the Wardley PST model again, right now we transition into the stage of town planners. So Solarisbank grew to roughly 300 people, and when we're entering this town planners phase, we somehow got to the new state of working together because we started operating on cross-unit projects. And these cross-unit projects we started a short while ago, they will further put our agile growth to the test. And I'm super curious to find out how well we're set to organize this next stage of collaboration. And yeah, right now this is work in progress, so we are in the middle of finding that out. Maybe there will be time and space to share the outcome with you in near future. Let's see that. But coming to an end, I want to quickly elaborate on the unexpected COVID-19 situation we are currently facing. We are all making our own experiences while coping with this virus. And I guess you agree when I say that we have not experienced something like that in our professional or private life so far. So facing this amount of uncertainty the virus creates with all the losses, all the rules, schools, kitas closed, a lot of layoffs, global economic crisis, I think this puts us in a completely new situation on a professional and also on a private level. And some weeks ago, one of my colleagues reflected the situation in a work-related context. He puts the situation in a nutshell, saying, now we will see how agile we really are. And yes, I agree. With all the pain put aside, it is a great self-validation for every organization to see how they cope with change. And I wish all of us that we use these experiences and make something great out of it. So today, I took you with me on the agile growth journey of Solarisbank, which definitely was a growth journey for me. And I mentioned in the beginning that I wanted to tell a story about Scaling Agile, where the main character, the hero of the narrative, was not another scaling framework, but the people. And I'm very grateful that I've experienced exactly this, seeing how people shape an environment in which they can thrive and together scale it up to company-wide, cross-functional, agile collaboration. So personally, I have learned and lived these 5 success factors. And my takeaway is that scaling agile is not about choosing the right framework. It is about the people. So I hope you enjoyed this talk as much as I did. And please be aware that our agile growth journey is not yet over. For me, it was a great pleasure to be here today, and thanks a lot for your attention.